Hi guys, Joe here with Inkilo Inc. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Instead of an old card showcase or a gameplay video, I'm going to be showing you guys some of my older projects that I still have access on with Tabletop Simulator. Some of these are very old, like 2018 kind of old, while others, I'm in the process of working through and figuring out if it's fun or not, what I could do, to try to make it fun, if it'll work out even. And I'm really doing this mostly to show you some older projects of mine that wouldn't really get shown through like my old card showcase videos, and to kind of, show you the process that I've kind of gone through after I've stopped working on Phytora, kind of to give you a behind the scenes look at as to what I've done in an attempt to make a new game. It's not that easy to create a new unique game. I've been trying to create things that aren't just play a unit, attack other units, attack directly, and win. I've been trying to experiment and try to come up with something more fun, alternate game mechanics, alternate win conditions, and that is a lot trickier than it sounds and is really outside of my comfort zone, we'll say, because my entire physical card collection is of battling games where you place a card, fight an opponent's card, and then attack directly to win. Alright, so we're going to start with a very old game. This is one of my first digital projects that I made, and I actually created it with Devin. I created the cards and he created the models. And the idea was that it was going to be like Advanced Wars, but with like a card system, like a deck system, and it wasn't really well polished. There were problems with getting the right cards because you needed certain structures to build certain units, and it was just all over the place. The reason why we stopped working on this game was mostly because it was my first real project that was being attempted, or at least attempting to be, played with another person, an actual game, you could say. And a problem with that is that it wasn't well balanced, it wasn't very playable, it wasn't really fun. There was just a lot of problems with it, and another thing that was really problematic was that I just kept adding shit. I kept giving each faction more and more units because it just had so many cool ideas, and there was just so much, and ugh. Here's one of the surviving unit cards. I don't know what happened with the rest of them. But basically you just had a picture, the name. This was actually made in Card Creator rather than Photoshop. I actually moved to Photoshop thanks to Devin's constant suggestion, and I'm glad I did because there's a lot more freedom with Photoshop. Though there were some nice things that were in Card Creator. But basically a unit had damage, health, speed, range, and then there was actually, let's see if I can find a card. Yeah, there was actually 3 resources, which is mind-boggling why I chose to do that. Balancing nightmare. There was metallic and energy, which is like metal and, energy, obviously. And then there was a special resource for each faction, basically your color plus, or the faction's color plus on at the end, like ion or something. And I don't know why I had three resources. 1 resource, or maybe 2, was all I would need, but there were some pretty cool models. This is the Foundation faction. They're kind of like the quote-unquote good guys. They're obviously blue in color. They were very industrial. They had a lot, like, very advanced technology. This is their strike cruiser, which is like a battle cruiser type thing. And then what are some other ones? Here's their like main battle tank, the Bullhorn. It's pretty cool. This guy was the assassin. He could actually cloak. So this is his uncloaked version, and this is his cloaked. Devin had a lot of fun making those, or the cloaked units, because I had him. Basically, he had to draw out this on the unit, or on the model texture layer or whatever. It was just And with the Foundation, how their infantry worked, you would play a civil droid, and then you could transform that civil droid into a combat unit. The idea was that the civil droid was unarmed but super fast, so you get a bunch of civil droids out, and then you transform them into like the big heavy units that are slower. And you would choose like a hero, and that hero had specific units and things available only to them. Like this is the Artax, which is like an artillery piece. This is actually the Conscripts faction now. I don't know why their cards survived and the Foundations didn't. This was before I redid all the pictures, but the Conscripts were like insect based, so they're all like arachnids. They were like the Swarm faction. They've got a bunch of bugs and whatnot. They were my favorite faction when playing the game. I really like this one too. I really like them. Devin did really well on all of these models. There are some that, you know, haven't aged particularly well. Some models didn't have very good, what's the word I'm looking for? Art direction. In that I was very shit at being able to explain what the fuck I wanted to Devin. So this right here is actually Phytora set 2. In this set, it was going to be all about dinosaurs. All of these dice are named, and whatever's on their number, or whatever number is on the dice, that's how much they would cost. I was going to introduce a new field type spell floral card. Where basically they were arenas or, you know, field cards from Yu-Gi-Oh! You would place them and they would have an effect on both you and your opponent. I couldn't remember though if they were going to have their own special slot or if you would just play them into either the back line or front line. I couldn't remember that. The multi-faction archetype that was going to be in set 2 was going to be called the Fossil archetype. And basically it was a group of cards where you would discard a fossil card to activate an ability of another fossil card. And at first they were going to be all like extinct forms of plant life. You know, real life extinct plants like ferns. What else? Cycad, which is like a very short, stubby tree, you know, maybe like an acorn. But then I kind of ran out of like cool extinct plants to use, so I kind of just made, you know, some lesser, like non-dinosaurs a part of the archetype. So like you got a Magnamelon or Maganemon, which is a Meganura. God, that is such a hard tongue twister. And plus a lemon, Meganura being the large dragonflies that lived way back when, before the dinosaurs. You had others like Flower Reptile, which is a Longasquama. It's weird, just look it up. And then you had other things like Moss Sloth, which was going to be like the super strong boss of the archetype. And then like a Charcoal... the archetype was called Charcoal. All the cards were called Charcoal, but they were part of the Fossil archetype. And then you got Reaperos, which is a Rhino Carolina Reaper. And then so you got some, you know, traps, spells, equip cards. There was going to be an equip card called the Lucky Clover. You equip it to your opponent, equip it to a plant, and whoever owns that plant would lose an energy every turn. There was going to be a Citrus Acid, which was going to be the third kind of card, not necessarily archetype, but like grouping with the lemon and lime acid. And that was just going to be an equip removal because there really wasn't enough of that. And then there was going to be a trap card, which was going to be called Drain Vine. You would pay a certain amount, and then your opponent would have to pay that same amount. So that was, I think that would have been a fun card, probably a broken card too. And then the field cards are kind of basic. You have things like Sticky Sap Swamp, which makes plants unable to be moved on the field or returned to hand. But there really wasn't a whole lot of that in the game anyways. So then you have things like the Asteroid Crater, which would stop you from playing trap cards. Devin probably would have liked that one. You have the Fertile Grassland, which would allow plants to evolve regardless of type. So a fruit could evolve into a veggie, or a flower could evolve into a shroom. And then like the ultimate field card would have been Permafrost, which would stop plants from being played to the back line and would kill any plants that are already there. Real quick, Editing Joe here. I didn't really go through any of the plants, so just some notable ones. Stamango, which would have been a Stego Mango. We got Tyradish Rex, which would have been the boss, or like the really cool card, a Radish Rex, which is awesome. Ankurian, which is an Endirian. I love Ankylosaurus, hence the name of the channel. I can't believe I didn't even mention that one. And then let's see if I can find the troll rare. Ah, yes, Fig. Fig would have been the troll rare of the set, and it would have been a dodo. So I just wanted to mention those few. I can't believe I didn't mention them before. That's all I had to say. Back to the regular schedule programming. So that's just kind of a quick, showcase of some of the cards that would have been in Phytora Set 2. Again, I plan to go over this in a future video where I kind of do a super massive deep dive on the whole history of Phytora and what went wrong, what I did well, what I learned with the newest version 3 you could call it. Basically, the evolution mechanic was so ingrained in my mind as being a good mechanic that it completely hindered me. If you look, all of these I've given them a cost already. And that's a problem because I would religiously follow this cost. Through that fact alone, it really killed a lot of creativity, a lot of creative possibility, and it really did just hinder me from being able to work and enjoy working on Phytora. Now this is an interesting game. The game's called Gemborn, and basically it went through a few versions, but basically you had 2 decks, a main deck and then a side deck. You would put these gems in the side deck, and you would every turn you would draw from your side deck and your main deck, and then you would pay the gems to play creatures. And the gems you would always get gems, so like it was trying to remove the randomness of Magic's land cards, but still giving a use for that system of so you would play these gem cards and they would work exactly like the Magic land cards, only you had a specific deck where you drew them from. And I feel like if Magic did that, it would be a much better game. And basically it was going to be animals in the form of like gem creatures. They were going to be called Gemini. A lot of these I was going to remake. A lot of them I haven't even made at all. And yeah, I think they look pretty cool. A lot of them, like the greens especially, I did a really good job. But like the mole, the armadillo, like a lot of these just look very good. But the game itself wasn't very fun. I don't know. I can't really remember what went wrong with this game, but I think when I tried playing it with Devin, it just wasn't very fun, so I kind of stopped working on it. I actually had a lot of fun making these gem animals. Oh, I've got a few dinosaurs down here too. I actually kind of started, making more of these, not necessarily gem animals, but animals in Tabletop again. Only this time I'm going for more of like a carved wooden aesthetic instead of a gem, which I think looks a lot better. It allows me to do the colors too. So this is a poison dart frog I made. It's the only one I've got. If I can figure out a game to use these paper craft animals or wood craft animals or whatever, I will. So you could look forward to maybe seeing this frog again sometime soon. Alright, so this one's a lot closer to how Inscription played. This game's called Aether Strike, and, right? No, it's called Enthralled. It's gone through a lot of name changes. And basically you had mana cards, just like Gemborn, a separate deck, where you drew the mana cards, and then you would play them, and they would work like Magic land cards. Only this game, I got a lot further on, and it was a lot better. The problem was how I handled the Magic card system and the drawing of the Magic cards. I made it so that you had to spend mana to draw new mana cards. That led to a problem where the player who focused solely on mana would win. So the first few turns were always the same, just spending mana. There was no reason to get cards out on the field early. It did not feel fun to play. It was very repetitive, but I really like a lot of the card designs that I made, especially the undeads. They were my favorites. A lot of these designs are really good, and I would love to reuse them in something. I just got to figure out a better way to make the game or to remake it completely. I don't know. So this was interesting. This was just a little test game. Not really. It wasn't even a game. It was just it was purely a test project. And it was an idea that I was playing with. Whoa, that guy went flying. Basically, you had these pieces. It was kind of like, what's it called? Beyblade. So you had these pieces, and you would fling them around, and then their weapons would hit each other. And you would deal damage only if a weapon hit another person or whatever. Or something like that. I'm not sure how the game would have worked, but there would be different weapons, and each weapon would, have its different, its own, like, type of movement. Like, this guy's got a heavy hammer, so he's very unwieldy. He's flying all over the place. I don't know if I'll ever use this for anything, but it was basically something that I just fucked around with for, 10, 20 minutes. So this game is an interesting game. If you've ever played Duelist, it's pretty much exactly like Duelist, only there's dice. So like if we look at these two cards, if this serpent attacked this stinger, he's got 2 attack power, so you would use 2 attack dice, and then the stinger's got 2 defense power, so you would use 2 defense dice, you would roll them, and then so these 2 would cancel out this die, so I would deal 2 damage, or 20 damage. Everything's in multiples of 10. There was another step, though, another unneeded step, was that you had to pay. So you would have to pay 2 to attack with Serpent, pay 2. And then you would have to pay to move it, you would have to pay to defend. Like, it was very unneeded. A lot of unnecessities. But you would play units in the back rows here, and you would move them, and the goal was to kill the leader that you chose. And it was basically just Duelist. Unlike Duelist, if you landed on one of these spaces, you would gain an energy or whatever for that turn. And it would be every turn that you had a piece there, so it was congruent rather than just like a one-time thing. So that would kind of give you a reason to have board control. Well, the reason why I stopped working on this game was because it was my first attempt at modeling, and I was going to do it with like robotic bug things, and they were gonna have like beetle tanks and all sorts of cool shit. But what ended up happening is I went to go create my first model, one of the first heroes, or kings or class or whatever, your commanders, and I went to go upload it to Tabletop, and it didn't work because it was too big, and basically that alone was like enough to just kill it for me, and I just gave up. So I don't know if this game will ever come back. It wasn't all that fun, but it was something at least. Alright, so we're in the last stretch. This looks like a lot, and trust me it is. It's, another showcase of how I unhealthily do things. These are all ideas that I had for the game. Don't worry about it though, it's not that important. So let's just move on. The game's called Enthralled, so this is a different version of Enthralled. And so how the game worked, it was kind of like Pokemon. So you had these mana cards, and unlike Pokemon, your mana cards were in a second separate deck. I feel like we've gone over this already, but I'm not too sure. Joking. I really like the idea of having a separate mana deck, and then with your main deck. I'm really intrigued with that idea, so I'm trying to make a game work with that, because I feel like that's a really good system. Anyways, you have these mana cards, and what you would do, you would attach mana cards to creatures and fight with them. Alternatively, you could just pay mana to cast spells. It was like a wizard game. So you had spells that you could use, like Fireball and stuff like that. So unlike Pokemon, all cards had their evolution already equipped. Or not equipped, but available. So let's just break down card real quick, or a creature card specifically. Top left, you have the name, which is, arguably not that important. Then, directly to the right of that, you have a little, gem with a, like a recycle symbol. Basically, when this creature dies, you get that, that many gems back to your hand, returned to your hand. So unlike Pokemon, where there was a retreat cost, when a creature died, you just gain the mana back. That's because the goal was to kill your opponent's spellcaster rather than the individual creatures. So next to the return cost is the place where their elemental symbols go. So that tells you what element or elements, if it's a dual type, this card is. And real quick, we're going to jump to the bottom left, very bottom left, where you see 2 empty slots with +0. That's where any weaknesses would go. So if you, let's say this card is I've actually got a type chart shit going on up here. Let's say that card was a fire type. It would be weak to water and earth, and that would deal, 20 extra damage. Or let's say your earth fire type. It's doubly weak to water, so that would deal 40 extra damage. Moving to the right of that, that's just a flavor box. In this case, rat trap. Pesky rodents that love shiny things. They live in large family groups, so if you ever see one, be wary of those that remain hidden. And then next to that, that's just a symbol to showcase that this is a summon, or like a creature, summon being the name of the creatures. To the left of him is a shield icon. That's defense. It works just like Phytora. If it takes 20 damage and it's got a defense of 10, it only takes 10 damage. The difference between Phytora and this game was that the max defense was going to be 40 or 50, I think, and the max damage was going to be 100, 120. So defense was going to be a lot smaller than what it is, and there was going to be a lot more piercing type attacks. And then directly opposite to that, on the right hand side, is the health. That reaches 0, the creature's dead. Below that, in the big text box, that's where attacks and abilities go. So an attack has a type, which is what that orb is, and then it also has a cost. So you have to have one mana of any type attached to Rat Trap to use Rodent Fang. It does 10 damage and 10 extra damage up to a maximum of 30 for every additional mana attached. So it gives you a reason to add more mana to Rat Trap. And then Rat Trap's got 2 abilities. It's got an ability called Brood, which is null type, which is what this white type is. And it gains defense for every null type on the field. And then another ability called Swarm Call, which when played, you can spend a mana to search for another null type. So let's go back to the Awakening, which is right below the name. It's got an Awakening cost of 2. So if you have 2 mana attached, you can, instead of attacking or doing an ability, or whatever, you can spend a turn, Rat Trap's turn, to awaken. It's now become an awakened. It no longer has an awakened cost. All creatures would have 2 forms, unawakened and then awakened. So 1 evolution for every creature. So Verminthief, which is Rat Trap's evolution, gives you 1 mana when it dies. So it's an upgrade. It's still a null type. It's now got 10 base defense, 50 health. So you would keep any damage taken, just like Pokemon. And now it's got 2 attacks. It's got an attack that costs 3 mana to use, but does 40 damage, called Wing Slash. And then it's got another attack that costs 5 mana, called Sneak Steal. It does 30 damage, but when used, you discard a mana card attached to the enemy creature, or if you target your opponent directly, they discard the top card of their mana deck. So it's more of like a disruption tool. And then it's got the same Brood ability, but it's also got an ability called Selfish, which while on the front line, it doesn't block your caster from being attacked. A little worried that it's not fun, and the problem with this project is that it's really hard to make a test game for it. Making the test game is almost as much work as making the game itself. So if it's not fun, it's a conflict, because I'm putting all this time and energy in it, and if it's not fun, I might not see it, and I might still keep pushing it, and we might just get into the same situation with Phytora. I think this could be fun. I'm just terrified that it isn't, so that's fucking me over. Alright, so that's kind of just a behind-the-scenes look at some of the projects that I've worked on throughout, the history of Tabletop. There's a few that I've deleted over the years. There's a few that I've lost over the years, which always sucks because I always put so much work into the fucking pre-plan phase. That's why I stopped doing shit in Tabletop and I moved to things like spreadsheets now, and it's just, you should see some of the spreadsheets that I have. It's just fucking loaded with junk and shit. You may have noticed that I didn't show you guys the secret project that I've been working on in the background. And that's for a very specific reason. And that reason being, it's not done yet. It's almost done. There's only like 3 or 4 cards left, and then I gotta make a board and some tokens, and then it's done. And then I'll release it for you guys to both play and see and watch and all sorts of shit. I'm kind of paranoid about it because it's just food. It's a chef game. You're playing cards to, win customers and shit. It's just a chef game though, so it's just food. It doesn't have cool creatures like dragons and, cool plant monsters or whatever, so it's just food. So you can just look that up on the internet. So I'm in this weird state of like, do I show them or do I not? And at this point, I've held it off long enough to where I'm just gonna, release it and I'll make some videos on it. It's a really fun game. I just don't think it's a very good YouTube showing kind of game. This is what the card back looks like. And in about a week or 2, it should be done. So yeah, probably look forward to a release date. Maybe sometime in June. Maybe, I don't know. It'll come out pretty quick though. It's almost done. Just got a board, a few more cards, and then it's done. Behind the scenes look and sneak peek at my next project. So that's all I've got to say. I hope you guys enjoyed. See you next time. Bye.